Good afternoon and welcome to a very snowy but wonderful Wednesday for Are You Well workshop. We're coming to you from the Wellness Center, and today's topic is perfectionism, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm so excited to have as a co-presenter today, Dr. Ami Shah, who is the Associate Professor in Surgery and Pediatrics in the Division of Pediatric Surgery. She's also the co-director of the Surgical Clerkship Program and the director of Peds Surgery Network. She's the lead Rush coaching program person. And I was reading in your bio that you chose pediatric surgery because of seeing the potential and impact of young people. I think that's amazing to think about it that way, like what's possible for these kids. So I'm so excited to have you with us. Is there anything you'd like to say as a welcome?
Thank you, Judy, for having me. And as I just want to say, I'm not in charge of the clerkship anymore. I've Dr. Sean Brown's in charge of that. But also, I think this is a really timely talk. I'm actually at a big national meeting right now. And what's fascinating is I was talking to someone who is literally a giant in pediatric surgery who's retiring this year. And he's like, yeah, it's good I'm finally retiring because like my imposter syndrome and perfectionism is really catching up with me. And it was just shocking to hear that here's this person that everyone knows that is legitimately at the end of their career, they're retiring in 6 months, and they're like, yep, perfectionism and imposter syndrome are hitting me on the daily. So
Yes, it's in all of us. Yes, definitely. So I thought this was kind of a good picture to take a look at for a lot of us. This is what we hope we show. And then if you turn around and take a look at all the stitching, that there's a lot that goes into it, and some of it's kind of messy. And so we need to think about behind every seemingly perfect person, there's a mess you can't see. And so that idea about always being kind is so pervasive right now. So it's really kind of a good thought, a good way to kind of start out, depending on how you feel about it. So when you come to us each month, we talk about a different thing within the wellness pillars, and today is perfectionism. Coming up in March, we have sleep, and then supercharging your brain, and then energy. So hopefully you will continue to join us. My name is Judy Fredericks. I'm your wellness liaison from the Center for Wellness at Rush. And we come at noon and at 6 p.m. once a month. So I'm glad you could join us. To start out, as we always do, is a grounding exercise. Your morning has been busy, you've been running around, you're making some time, you made a commitment to make time for yourself for wellness right now. So let's just take a moment and sit back in your chair, put your feet on the floor, hands in your lap, and think about the ways that you calm yourself. One of the ways is just to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. So go ahead and do that. And as you do that, kind of roll those shoulders back, engage those shoulder blades so you really can feel that opening of your chest, taking those deep breaths. That brings down your cortisol and allows you to see more clearly, think more clearly. Another way is if you would add in your hand over your heart when you do that, you're actually laying down these neural pathways that will get you to calming quicker. So that's a good thing. And so right now, hopefully that you're feeling calm and rested. And then if you wouldn't mind just lowering your eyes or closing your eyes and listen to my voice for just a moment. I want you to settle in and feel comfortable. Keep taking those nice deep breaths and think of a person who's been kind to you. Could be a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a friend, a partner, even a beloved pet. Allow yourself to feel the kindness and the warmth. Imagine yourself with somebody that is gazing at you with kindness and understanding, with compassion. Imagine this person is wishing you well, sending you a blessing, possibly saying these words: May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy. May you be held in kindness and compassion. Take a deep breath and let's stretch. So stretch your shoulders, so stretch your arms out in front of you, stretch around the back, your hand over your head, grab one wrist and pull, grab the other wrist and pull, hands behind your back so that you're opening up that chest. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Thank you, Vicky. And that's a lot of times when people are kind of hunched over their computers, it just feels so good to kind of open that up and take a breath and then shake it out. Just kind of shake. All right, so let's get started. I want to talk about our objectives because having high standards is a good thing. That's really how you got here, right? So, striving for excellence is a concept to explore, showing that you have good work ethic, strong character. But sometimes we want to soften that language a little bit because not everyone is a perfectionist. So, I think it's important to emphasize that perfectionism is good and bad. Healthcare is a very competitive environment. You may feel that constantly you have to prove your worth, right? That sometimes it does generate perfectionist tendencies. While perfectionism can be rooted in fear and self doubt, you can also leverage perfectionism to feel success, resilience, and a strong sense of yourself. We want to support you to achieve your goals without compromising your sense of worth. So, we do want to talk about what is perfectionism and imposter syndrome, how you can develop an awareness to kind of check yourself, give yourself some boundaries. And then to gain some knowledge of the good and the bad of it, because there are two sides to it, and just leverage that ability to have that perfectionism for success. And finally, to just review some available resources. So hopefully that will take care of what you're hoping for.
And as Judy said, we wanted to start off so we're all on the same page with the definition.
You
And
annoying.
sorry. Um, the definition of perfectionism is that it's a personal standard, attitude, or philosophy that demands perfection and rejects anything else. And so I just wanted to look at those words that were highlighted again, that demands perfection and rejects anything else. But there's an inherent flaw in this definition, in that what is the definition of perfection? That definition of perfection is often a standard that we set for ourselves and can be different for each and every person. And the problem is, a lot of times, we don't even know what perfection is. We've never really thought about what is the end goal? How do I know I'm the best at this? How do I know that I've met my own goals or criteria for this? And if we don't even know what that goal or when we've reached that peak is, then everything else we do is automatically rejected or not good enough.
We want to learn to recognize perfectionism. So it creates a fear sometimes of making a mistake. Over time, there's a belief that can grow into a feeling that you're not as capable as others. So you want to check in and see where it came from. Sometimes the competition comes from inside.
Mhm.
Have you ever been celebrated for being the best and shamed if you were not? Consider your culture, your family values. Think back into school, like your primary days and the rules, the family rules. And then think about nonconformance. Does that result in being shamed? But here, that results in being celebrated, that you are able to excel. Do you ever take over a group project to improve your overall perceived standard? And was it at the expense of time and sleep? And consider, was it worth it? So I want you to think about how it shows up. Do you use a lot of should statements? I should have known. I should never have made that mistake. Or you constantly criticize yourself that if you make a mistake, what is the worst thing that could happen? Would you be humiliated? Would you not be able to survive? And then even though you prepare, you think that you won't do well. So that's a hard place to live. So believe it or not, perfectionists are procrastinators. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it's hard to complete a task if you don't think it'll be perfect. I don't know if some of you are nodding your head at this point. You want to be able to gain knowledge of both the good and the bad of it because there are health implications. There's a couple different types of perfectionisms, and one is actually neurotic perfectionism that has some really serious downsides that you need to be in a perfect condition before you start to work. that your view of reality is a little bit skewed, that you're pushing past diminishing returns, like endless hours, health issues. Do they really make a difference? And that deep-seated unhappiness and internal struggle for trying to be perfect. Then you also disregard your own health to find a mission and kind of push through, push past family, push past holidays, socializing kinds of things. That's really not sustainable. So we have a couple of things on the screen, and we're going to actually have a little survey in just a moment to tell whether you're a perfectionist. So you take kind of a look at that, and hopefully that will be able to have this survey up. So if you don't have all these tendencies, or maybe not all at the same time, that's great. And so it's going to be a Slido poll, and it'll come up again in just a second here. So you can see the QR code and just select all that applies. So we can take a look at what's going on in the room, kind of be able to read the room here. So it's slido.com, and then the passcode is that UAMAOK. And if you're not able to do that, if you want to unmute or put in the chat some of the things that you find common for yourself, there we go. Thank you for being the first one in. Yeah. And that waiting for the right moment, that is absolutely a characteristic of perfection. And while you're doing this, you want to see if you can define joy. Like, is there in your life, would you be able to know it when it showed up? Or are you always trying to push past it to do better, to do more, to feel happier? Could you feel happier? All right. All right, well, thank you for joining in on this. So, procrastinating, waiting for the right moment, and spot mistakes that others don't see. Very true. There's a story about Lady Gaga and one of her most popular songs, and she made a mistake in there, and she knows it, and everybody loves the song, but she says, every time I hear it, I cringe because I know I could have done better. It's incredible. So just like Ami had said, that it's in all of us looking for those kind of things that we could do different. So thank you. Appreciate all of that. You can see all of the scores here. All right. So Ami's going to take us through this graphic.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, looking back on that Slido poll, there are some things in there that we sort of wear that perfectionism as a badge of honor because we're like, oh, we pick out mistakes other people don't make, other people don't see, that we make sure that everything is set and in its right place. And I think a lot of times we think that it means a good thing when we're aiming for that perfectionism. And we may have even been told, especially in medicine, I think it's a personality type that goes into this field, into healthcare, that, is a good thing. And we were highly praised for these results. And we may have even taken it on as sort of part of our identity. And we're like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. And I just wanted to say as well that perfectionism doesn't mean that you don't have high standards and that you aren't doing things really well and that you aren't putting high quality work out there. But the problem is that, oh, sorry, Judy, can you go back one? That when we're doing those, sorry, Judy, are you able to go back one slide? Um, we'll get back to that slide hopefully in a second. But what that slide was showing us is that often what we're doing when we have a task to do and we have this goal that we want to get to, we've set this sort of unrealistic standard for ourselves. And so, of course, we have this fear of failure because inherently in our brains, we know that we cannot meet that unrealistic standard. So, when we know that we can't meet that unrealistic standard, we have that fear of failure because we're setting ourselves up for failure. So, we often procrastinate about what we need to do. And then we just focus on the results, not on the things that we can learn by getting to that, by achieving that goal, or not on the things that are measurable. And we become highly critical of ourselves. And you can see this as sort of a toxic circle that we can get stuck in, and we can continually have these unrealistic standards, be scared of trying to meet those unrealistic standards. So we procrastinate on what we're doing. And then we're highly critical of ourselves when we fail to meet those standards. And so hopefully today we'll continue talking a little bit more about how we can get out of some of those, get out of this cycle.
Thank you. And again, could you try to mute yourselves, you guys, so that we can continue on? All right, so different types of perfectionism. So there's actually three different types that I'm going to go through, and one is that self-oriented perfectionism. So the internal drive, the strive for absolute perfection, you are vulnerable to anxiety, rumination, and burnout because your mind is always skipping through what if, and trying to fix things, fix problems that cannot be solved. And so that's really hard that you're just going to kind of be on that hamster wheel. The other thing is the socially prescribed perfectionism, believing um, that others expect them to be as perfect as you expect to be. And that's really hard because there's a lot of unnecessary pressure from misperceptions, like you believe that they expect you to be perfect. Maybe they don't. What if they didn't? So you're susceptible to depression and physical illness. You get headaches, you get GI stuff, you get irregular sleep patterns. And so that's something that you want to think about. That's the pressure coming from outside to within, and you're not sure really. It's your perception of it. And then the last one is other-oriented perfectionism. This is very common that you expect the others to be as perfect as you. So when you're doing a project, you expect everybody else to put in as many hours and types of things that you do. When you do any kind of a social thing, you expect everybody else to do the same thing that you do. And the hard part about this is that it's hard to maintain relationships, that people that are in relationships to you might be afraid that they're not going to be as good as you, or that they might get angry because they're not, they're being held to a high standard. And then you might get angry because they're not meeting your expectations. So there's a cost to be a perfectionist. So that's a very important thing to consider about your personality.
And I think an important thing is to this is that we've listed all the ways in which perfectionism is bad. But I think we also can take a little bit of time to honor that we've gotten to our current state of success by these mechanisms that have worked for us, right? We're at the spot where we are because some of these things are not bad. It's not bad to hold ourselves to high standards. It's not bad to strive for more knowledge. It's not bad to care about what you're doing. But the problem is often when we've taken that a little too far. So this is about that self-compassion component of what is perfectionism taken to the extreme and what's high standards, and where does that balance live so that we can enjoy the experience of our lives a little bit more, enjoy who we are. We can celebrate our success because we have set a goal that we've met. So again, perfectionism isn't all bad, but anything taken to extremes is bad. And we don't want to become like this little cartoon on the side where everything's good enough. We want to keep up those high standards. But how can we do that in a way that's kind to ourselves?
That, that balance is so important. So we're just going to do a little test here. And you think about the internal dialogue and the swan effect, that you see people around you and they seem to be doing okay, and some even are doing great. So what's their secret? Could it be the swan effect? And that's true for all of us, that we're trying so hard to juggle things, that we do well to succeed, that we're paddling like crazy under the water, where most don't see what's going on. So the first part of this is say something nice to a person in the chat or send a text. So send a compliment in the text right now. Stop what you're doing, send something, maybe hope you're having a good day. Hope you're managing with the snow, whatever it is. I love you. I miss you. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend. Anything. Just send something nice or put something in the chat that's positive. All right, hopefully you've had time to do that. Well, how did it feel? Did you smile? Like thinking about somebody getting your message and not expecting it and just kind of being happy about it? Did they reply? And the important part is that you accept their appreciation, not to say, oh, it was nothing, but just say thank you. Thank you for noticing, or you're welcome. Just some politeness. Very nice. So what's important about that is that we want to acknowledge not only that they responded back, but it felt good. And we want to be able to acknowledge our own success, because if we don't, it really denies that endorphin release and it blocks energy restoration. So you do want to be able to acknowledge you're doing well and acknowledge that somebody was kind back to you. That's an important thing. All right. So that with the second part of this, right? So if you could, say the same thing to yourself, the same thing that you just said. Say that to yourself. And you actually hear it. Was it comfortable to say something nice to yourself? And for some, that's very difficult. And if you can't feel that in yourself, it feels silly to do it, you actually could try to do that. Like every morning when you look in the mirror to say, good morning, you look good today, you feel great. And actually kind of train your brain to scan for positive things. It's very important to be able to do that. All right, so here's kind of another test, and this is a test of your ability to tolerate. So you see the dots on the left-hand side. Kind of the game of this is to connect all 9 dots without lifting your pen, right? So you'll end up probably with a couple lines here. And you have 1 minute to do it. We're going to give you just a little time. And while you're doing it, actually be aware of your body sensations, the change in your emotions or your thoughts. Are you doing okay? Are you laughing? This is kind of silly. How does it impact you? Because this is actually kind of part of the triangle of awareness, that you do have emotions, thoughts, and body sensations that go into anything challenging. And the important part of this is that you recognize it. So if your thoughts on one hand is, I can't do this, and you begin to get tense, and then it kind of creates an emotion, to take that breath and kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, I haven't done it before, or I haven't done this exact thing, but I have experience. I can bring that forward and I can be able to learn something new. And so that whole idea about that triangle is really important. Do you want to be able to be aware? All right, so you probably have about your minute. I will give you the answer to this in just a few minutes. And those of you who Googled it already, all right, that's fine.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how this relates to something called an imposter phenomenon, which you may have heard of. And again, you can see I like definitions. This was imposter phenomenon was originally described actually in 1978, and this was described in high achieving women. But as I told you guys, I'm at this conference right now, and there's a person who's happens to be a man who is talking about how much he still suffers from imposter phenomenon. And it's the idea that we attribute our success or luck to over preparing and not our ability. And I think that you can see how that would relate to that drive for perfectionism. Like if we can prepare enough, if we know enough, if we try hard enough, if we meet that impossible standard, then we'll be great, and then we won't feel like this anymore. And it's that belief in that our success is due to luck, not our skills, even though we're trying to do it. So it's not due to our skills, it's not due to our intelligence, it's not due to our qualifications. It's because we're lucky. And so we can have this perpetual feeling of posing or being exposed as a fraud. And so we can really start to internalize that. And I want to call out one thing, that imposter phenomenon can very much also be secondary to external cultural influences. There are systems and cultural things that exist for all of us that can tell us that we're not good enough, that in micro and macro aggression sort of ways. But we can't start to fix a lot of those cultural norms
Mostly
until we
contributing.
start um,
Most of the events were about.
sorry, I was just muting. We can't start to fix some of those external cultural norms until we fix a little bit about what our internal dialogue is. And so, why this can be helpful is that areas that we feel we're feeling this way, it can be signaling that we don't know something, and be we can want to do things and do new things and grow and develop, but it can go astray. So anytime you're feeling a new challenge or you're out of your comfort zone, you're susceptible to imposter syndrome. And you're an experienced novice. I just recently started playing tennis, and let me tell you, I'm bad at it. And I'm like, can I even really say I'm a tennis player when I'm sort of really stinky at it? And I can, right? Who says that I don't have as much right to be out on the court as the people who can, slam the balls and do all the crazy stuff that I can't do yet. And so you can see how these two things can go hand in hand and sort of feed off of each other, thinking that if I could just reach that perfectionism, then I wouldn't feel this imposter phenomenon anymore. But that's not actually true. And just acknowledging that, knowing that these two can go hand in hand is important. And so, with this sort of internal imposter syndrome that we can feel, and seeing how these two are related, we can start, once we identify where we are, we can start to decouple that language, saying that I'm just feeling this way because I have high standards, and we can look at it as a way to see if we've set clear goals, if we've set clear ways that we know that we've achieved that success, or that success, and then we can start to dial down some of that noise that's happening in our brains.
So whenever we start a new project, we start to have these feelings about it. Again, if you're a perfectionist, then you want to be able to feel that it's exactly right. You're going to do a good job. You're going to be able to do it. And a lot of times that's why we push it off, because it's not just right, or you're not feeling the pressure of the deadline yet, right? So you start out with some self-doubt, like, can I do this? Am I going to be okay? And so you'll either over prep or you'll procrastinate. Now, if you complete the project, a lot of times it brings just like temporary relief. And if you're successful, over preparation might be due to a lot of effort, or if you procrastinated, then it was due to luck. So if you ignore, push away positive feedback, you feel like a fake, you have self-doubt, and then the cycle begins again. And so you want to be able to find a spot where you can break that. So the idea of, was it truly luck, or was it the fact that you prepared? Um, were you able to accomplish your goal? Or did you set your goal so high that you were not going to be able to get there? So what was the rubric? Were you be able to check off the boxes and say, yes, I did what was expected of me. In fact, I did a little bit more. I got a good grade and I feel good. It wasn't luck. I worked hard. And so that's the important part about all of this. And that we need to work to succeed, yes. And there is some boundaries to that. And I think that's an important part about checking out the boundaries, because going over those boundaries, is it making a difference? Is it making you better? Is it making you perfect? Very important to think about.
And hopefully, Juliet and I have done a good job about sort of, um, defining perfectionism and imposter syndrome. But coming back a little bit, why are we talking about this? Why do we care about this? And I think it's important for how we feel at work. We all had a purpose or a passion and a reason that we wanted to help take care of other people. And when we're feeling this way, that we're never good enough, that we can't quite ever meet the goals that we set, that can really start to erode at our purpose or our passion for what we're doing. And and this is what we're doing day in and day out. And when we have purpose or passion for something, of course we enjoy it. And when we enjoy where we work and who we're with, we obviously feel like we belong, that we belong at this institution, and it can be protective against burnout. And on the flip side of that, if we're not feeling that purpose, if we're constantly sort of internally tearing ourselves down, we don't have enjoyment. And how can we feel like we belong when we feel like we're gonna get found out or that we're a fraud at any moment? And then, of course, you don't wanna be in that setting. Nobody wants to be in that setting, and we start to do mechanisms that are mm, can lead to burnout and can lead us to not being to where we are, in the places that we choose to wanna be.
Those are very wise words. I just read Dr. Murthy's Parting Prescription for America. He's the Surgeon General for the last 10 years. And he stated that without community, it's hard to feel whole. And so to think about who your community is, that hopefully that you have that, and that you want to strive for relationships, service, and purpose. And so I think it's all captured in that slide. I really appreciate that you spoke to that. Thank you.
And I just wanted to also normalize how common this is. I gave you the one example of the person that I'm at this conference with, but they actually looked at this in general surgery residents. And obviously, I'm a surgeon, so sorry, this is the data you get. But they looked at 6 academic general surgery programs around the country, looked at about 141 residents, and they found that 75% of residents have significant or severe imposter syndrome. So these are people who have worked hard their whole lives, who have objectively achieved a great measure of success. Um, and 76% of them felt significant or severe imposter syndrome, that they didn't belong, that they happened to just get lucky. And there was no identifiable risk factors, and it was high levels regardless of age, sex, what level of training that they were in, how well they did on standardized tests, whether in medical school or residency. So this is just a lot of what people feel daily, unfortunately.
So if you're running around and it looks like your brain's on fire, you want to think about what's going on. You want to think about the cortisol and the epinephrine. You want to think about managing stress and what we're dealing with and our thoughts about it. So you have that reptilian brain, you have the amygdala that has your fight, flight, freeze, and that's your reaction center. And you want to consider that because you stay in that reaction center if you're not sleeping, if you feel over anxious, if you haven't hydrated. Now, on the flip side, if you are feeling a moderate level of stress, you're doing okay, you're working forward, you're able to go from the reaction center to the prefrontal cortex where your logic and your reasoning is. And that's a very important thing to be able to do as students, as faculty, as staff. Very important to be able to see where you are. Take that deep breath, make that shift. It takes only 6 seconds if you have slept, if you're hydrated, and your level of stress is moderate to low. So you want to consider what needs to change for you to be able to feel more calm, more tolerant. That's a really important thing, is that tolerant. And that's chronic uncertainty is really exhausting to our mental health. And you think about it, that everybody's struggling in a different way. So one of the things you can say to yourself is, I can do this. I've done similar things before, and kind of get permission to have boundaries and to say no, to be able to stop and to breathe. Very important that you're able to kind of give yourself permission. Now, in order to calm our reptilian brain, to kind of make that shift, we have to think about the spiral that can happen sometimes that induces fear and anxiety, and it can be stopped almost immediately by just those 3 deep breaths. That way, you're laying down those neural pathways to calm. So every time I take the 3 deep breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth, I look outside for the green gray, which is the most calming thing for my brain. I put my hand over my heart. My brain goes to that neural pathway to know I want to calm, to bring down my cortisol, to kind of increase the feeling that I've got this. And that's a really important thing that you do, because the more you do it, the faster your brain gets there. So I like using the stop method. And this is part of the distress tolerance skill, that you stop and notice your reaction, notice what's happening. And even if you're in the middle of a
3,000 plus counties across the United States, embarrassingly, we have.
Thank you. um, to be able to notice that reaction, take a step back. So that T is really taking a step back, or take a breath, because that will open your visual field and allow you to kind of see what's reality instead of what the focus has been, kind of narrowed focus. And then you want to observe your internal thoughts, your emotions, your sensation, the external observations. You want to give yourself a moment, just that mindful moment, to see where you are in the moment. And then finally, the P is to proceed mindfully or to park it. Sometimes no response is okay. And so you want to be able to do that. Some of the things that can help you, again, is that being in the moment and breathing, that green gray of nature, and getting up and moving. Sometimes you just need to take a break. So get up, move, whatever you need to do, walk, run, meditate, do something. All right, so for those of you who were trying that puzzle and didn't Google it, here's the answer. So the idea is to give yourself grace, because sometimes the answer is outside the box. And I think that's true about life, that sometimes we are so boxed in by things we've learned and believed and trusted that we really need to back up and see if there is an answer outside that box. And so I'm hoping a couple of you felt good about doing that and had a little fun with it. Right, so to be able to develop your own awareness, that you're able to kind of control what's going on, it's important that you can separate facts from assumption, because sometimes it's the ice cube and not the iceberg. And so we need to think about what is it. And the ways to do that is just to slow down a little bit and be aware about your feeling. Feelings are not good or bad, they just are. But the idea is to be aware of it, to know what the feeling is, and then maybe reshape the way you think about it. If you can use curiosity a little bit instead of being so rigid about it, to say, could there be a different way to look at it? So, like the 9 dots, could there be a different way to solve this? So, very good to be able to do that. Imposter syndrome is more common in students and medical nursing fields because of the rapid rate of change and advancement. But I think these days, almost every field has a very rapid rate of change and advancement. We feel we should keep up, but it's close to impossible to do that. And so the idea about having a team or getting coaching is really critical. To have that social community is so important. So again, you want to be able to breathe, especially like if you're going in to see a client or a family that's been difficult. If you do hand hygiene when you go in, that's a really good time to take the 3 deep breaths. Breathe before you answer a question, because a lot of times when we react with an answer, we're answering it the way the person asking it, you're thinking that's what they want to hear. So instead, take a breath and allow yourself to have the true answer the way you feel. Be able to lay down that neural pathway, whatever you do to be able to calm, be able to do that, so that you're able to take a moment, kind of that mindful moment, and do things that are positive in your life. Maybe give a compliment every day, at least one. Positive scanning, positive affirmations, very important. A sense of humor, always good. Sleep and rest, critical. Hydration, and immensely important, hydration. I don't think we give that enough credit. And then consider what gave you joy yesterday. Are you able to identify what joy is for you? And I think that's a really good exercise, because around perfectionism, we always are pushing the envelope. But what brings you joy? Like, if you get to that, would you recognize it? And then we want to do a little bit about shifting that whole perception. So you want to think about the big picture. You want to try to change the behavior a little bit. So what if you honestly told someone that you were tired? So if they said, hey, how are you today? And you say, I'm really tired. Would they be surprised? I want you to try that today when you're walking down the hallway and say, when somebody says, hi, how are you? And see if you could actually tell them, like, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed today, or I'm a little anxious about this next class that I'm going into, and just see what the reaction is. It's just kind of fun to do that because they're kind of surprised because nobody does that anymore. They're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, living the dream, whatever. But actually telling them is really different. The other thing is allow silence. A lot of times we walk in a room and the first thing we do, we notice there's silence. We sit down and we take out our phone, right? Because there's never silence on the phone. The phone is always there to scan or do something. But the idea is, could you tolerate silence? Could you tolerate silence when you're sitting with somebody? Just allow moments, not uncomfortable silence, just silence. What if you spontaneously answered a question instead of having to Google it? That'd be nice, right? You could say, I don't know. Or how many of you research the restaurants that you're going to go and meet at and you have everything all figured out and you know what you're going to order and just kind of don't have any ability to be flexible there. And then finally, what about thinking about what you did well today? At the end of the day, can you think about 3 things that went well for you? I always talk about 3 good things, and it's a thing. You actually can go online and you can Google 3 good things, but the basic part of it is at the end of your day, it will release endorphins because you're thinking about good things, and they don't have to be big. They could be you got here early enough and got a great parking space. That's always a good feeling, right? Or the parking space was large enough that you didn't have to squeeze out your door, right? So just think of like 3 good things you did, and that releases endorphins. It feels good. You relax. You're able to sleep a little better. So very, very good to be able to do that. And I know
Oh,
sometimes it could be tough.
yeah, and this is really hard. And we want to acknowledge that this is not something that we can just do automatically. And when we try to do this, sometimes I love Brene Brown. She has this great quote that sometimes when we dare to walk into the arena, the greatest critic that we face is ourselves. And I think that's true of all of this work. As Judy said, it's a lot easier to be busy than it is to be silent and really turn that mirror around. But it's important. It's important in the experience of our lives and who we want to be and how we want to feel. And I very much, when I started doing all this work, was like, wait, I'm in charge of my own feelings. They aren't just because of what someone said or what someone did. And like that was an automatic response. Like I get to choose how I feel about something. That was really revolutionary for me. And I will say oftentimes really difficult still. On a personal note, my daughter's going through some stuff in school and trying not to take responsibility for all of her feelings and actions and let her feelings and actions be their own and it not be all my fault is really, really difficult. And so we get to learn this lesson in many times, in many ways. But learning that lesson has allowed me to enjoy my life so much more and enjoy the experience of being myself. Um, so just acknowledging that this is hard, this isn't an easy task, but it's such a worthwhile task. I like my life and who I am so much more than than ever. I'm the happiest I've ever been with myself, and it's because of this hard work and leaning into it.
Absolutely. So I love this saying, and I think we need to have this posted above your workspace or above your mirror to kind of get you back into feeling good that you want to be able to continue to strive for excellence. And I want you to consider the power of and. When you're about to say but, I'd like to see if you could switch it to and. And so you're kind of recognizing your value when you do that. So you're resilient and you need a break. You gave it your all and you needed to back out. You're independent and still need others. You were sure and things have changed. You're kind and you have boundaries. Others may have it worse and your pain is still valid. You did your best and now you know more. I think to consider that today when you start to say but in a sentence, think about what that happens to the first part of that sentence. and be able to put the and in there so you can hold both of them in value. All right. We have a couple of resources that were used, and this will be on the recording that will be on the Rush Wellness website. So you're always able to go back to any of these recordings and see any of the links, any of the quotes that we've done. So you'll be able to do that. And then we do want to talk about some of our resources. So this is actually where the Rush Wellness Center is. So it's housed in the Triangle building across the expressway from the hospital. It's on the first floor. It's open 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. What's beautiful about it is it's hybrid, so you can meet in person or virtually. There's unlimited coaching and counseling sessions that are part of your benefit. So there is no fee for students, employees, staff, faculty. We have two options. One is operated by Rush Wellness. So there's psychotherapists that are part of Rush, and they're available 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. There is online scheduling for your confidentiality. It is free and it is available only to Rush community. On the other side, we partner with ComPsych, so that's the Employee Student and Assistance Program. They are also telehealth and in person. There is phone scheduling with them, and that is on our website. They offer 5 free sessions, and then they refer you at that point. But the unique part about that is it's available to immediate family and significant others. So putting these two benefits together is just kind of an incredible thing for your mental health. We want to make sure that you feel that your confidentiality is protected, your privacy is protected. So just by the way of the design of the facility, it's a one-way in and one-way out kind of system, very good for that. Or you can be online, that the documentation is separate from anything at the hospital, and the scheduling is separate from anything at the hospital. It's very much online and private in your own portal. The wellness website itself is right here in front. So it's really nice to be able to learn about the wellness center, to actually learn about the fitness center as part of the wellness center, and to go to wellness programming to see what kinds of things we've recorded and posted on the website. There's also all of the wellness newsletters. I know Mary is on this call, so congratulations. You did a great job on the newsletters all the time, so I appreciate that. And just the space itself is just open to anything calming and hopefully for your mental health. We do have energy pods around the hospital. So one of them is located in the fitness center. And so you do not need to be a member to be able to use the fitness center, that employees and students can use them, but do call ahead for an appointment. The students do have an energy pod in the cultural center, and the physicians also have an energy pod. So it's just kind of nice to be able to take a rest. I would give yourself 30 minutes, probably 20 minutes of the program where it's calm, quiet, dark, and you're relaxed, and then just 5 minutes on either side to kind of get in and be able to get out. And it just really is an amazing break from your day. I really encourage that. We also have the wellness consult pager that's 852323. This is 24/7. And within an hour, you'll be talking to a psychotherapist. So you can use it for yourself or for somebody that you're worried about. You can say, hey, you know what? Let's call this pager and see if they can help, especially if somebody's having a panic attack or they're very anxious about something, feeling very overwhelmed. Even if it's 2 in the morning and you're just not feeling okay, please use that and see what kind of support you can be offered at that point. It's just so nice to be able to contact somebody whenever you're needed. Right. Right now we have the Rush of Gratitude. Hopefully some of you have been able to be at the events. We had a lot of fun yesterday over in the RAB building. So there's little kind of Valentine cards that you can express your gratitude and give them out. They're green because that's Rush, right? We also had a gratitude events, so put together little bags or little packets to give to those that you care about, and that was kind of fun to do that. You can scan the QR code and you can post to recognize somebody here at Rush. And isn't that the highest form of gratitude, is to be able to recognize them and what they do? So that's very wonderful. But it's the Rush of Gratitude you can use. And I'm going to go up here and check in the chat because we just got a lot of things up here. Oh. All right, thank you. All these wonderful things, reminding everybody to read. A recent stat that the medical knowledge and the amount of information out in the world is doubling every 2 months, so there's no way anybody can keep up with that. Thank you so much, Ami. That was so, yeah, that's very important, especially when we're thinking about that. And then Mary said that actually at the Armor Cafeteria on Friday, if anybody's here on Friday, 11 to 1, if you want to come by and get a card, do that. All right. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, it's important to know that your peers that have gone to the mental health first aid course have offered a half hour of time for a free phone call. So that might be a nice way to get some support where you're not actually in counseling yet. So think about just kind of an easy way to get some support. There's also coaching. I don't know, Ami, if you wanted to add in anything about the coaching, but this is something that really does improve your performance and well-being. There is a cost to it, but you can sign up for coaching for physicians and nurses.
Yeah, and we're currently revamping the programs. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me. But there'll be some updates of that soon.
Thank you. All right, mental health first aid that I mentioned before, it's kind of like CPR for your mental health. You learn about signs and symptoms, you learn about resources, you learn about how, like what to say if you're worried about somebody, what to say, and then not even what to say, but you go farther about what to do. What can you offer them? What resources are out there? What can you do in the moment? And that's really a wonderful thing to be able to have in your tool bag. So I think that anybody that is in the health profession would really benefit by that. And right now, the Wellness Center provides that for free. It's once a month, and you're able to sign up on the wellness website, and you can see that at the bottom there, rush.edu/wellness. We have a facilitated access program, which I think is incredible, that if you are struggling to get an appointment for yourself, for your own medical good health, that you're able to use this program. And what they'll do is they'll take down your information. And as soon as something pops up, somebody cancels, and you happen to be available, you get to jump ahead of the class. And so that's really good. So either the phone number, the 94 staff number, or the facilitated access navigator website, you'll be able to let them do the work for you if you can't get an appointment within the time that you're hoping for. I put this up there, even though it was in October. I think it's important that you know that every October we're doing panels once a week on different topics around mental health, and these are all recorded and on the Rush Wellness website. On the 10th, talked about why is everyone angry, and it was a panel. So all of these were panels. You are able to go back and take a look at any of those, as well as any of the other things that we've recorded. All right, so here's one last survey. Is there anything you can do that you could start today, whether it's something you've been wanting to do or whether it was something that we suggested that could help you manage that feeling of perfectionism? One thing. You know, and even if it's just the sleeping and hydrating so you're more tolerant, or even practicing not using your phone at every moment and being able to be more tolerant without your phone. Yes, yeah. Stop being so hard on yourself. Absolutely. And you're right about that spontaneity. It's nice to be spontaneous. And if you're someone that always has to have it planned and perfect, it makes it very stressful, very difficult. So, yeah, breathing is good, right? Yes, yes, you are good, and you're great that you identified having gratitude toward yourself is important. Journaling is wonderful. Journaling really gives you a path of where you've been and helps to kind of prepare you for where you want to go. So journaling is so important. Even if you write down the 3 good things in your journal, that's one way to do it for people who don't want to, if they feel overwhelmed by that. So definitely. Oh, I like that focus on being done, not perfect, right? Yeah, don't let perfect get in the way of good. Very good. All right. Thank you. Oh, there's 5 more people. We'll let that kind of pop in there. Those deep breaths, that's amazing. It is amazing how your brain responds to that extra oxygen that you provide with those 3 deep breaths. And if you can add in that green gray, definitely important. So use that. That can even be one of your accomplishments for the day, that you stopped in your day, you noticed the anxiety, you took the 3 deep breaths, and you feel better. So yeah, definitely acknowledge all of those kinds of things. So very good. Oh, final one, quiet the bullying inner monologue. Yes, definitely. Try to find some positive things that you can say to yourself that you could feel good about. Right?
Judy, I recently heard this from someone else, and I've incorporated it because I'm bad about remembering for myself, but I've incorporated it into family time. I actually asked my kids, like, what are the 3 things that went really well today? And we have to go around the table and all talk about what they are every day. So now, if I forget, my kids are like, "Wait, we didn't talk about the 3 things."
Yeah. And they feel good. Plus, they connect better with each other because they know about something that maybe they wouldn't have shared with their siblings or with you. So that's a wonderful practice to be able to do. Thank you for adding that. All right, so we always talk about one of our pillars of wellness. And so today I think we talked about quite a bit, but the whole idea about the stress management, about the social contact, just really important, and including that sleep, hydration, all those things, get up and move. All right. So just as a wrap up, to be able to be true to yourself, pay attention to what's going on in your body, not so much what's out there, just like pay attention with what's going on there and what can you do to manage that so that you can better able to support what's going on. Make sure that you've established a sense of safety, that you have calming techniques that work for you, and then to shift your attitude a little bit by practicing gratitude. I think that's always helpful. Anybody has any questions, we'll be glad to take the questions for you. And I did have a little saying that we can talk about courage and love and compassion until we sound like a greeting card, right? But unless we're willing to share an honest conversation about what gets in the way, putting these practices in place will never change. And I think that was something that Ami, I think you shared with me earlier. And then if anybody had a question about what I mentioned earlier, my parting prescription for America, you might want to go and read it. It's really a good read. And even if you only want to see a short part, read the very end, like the last 3 pages. They're very short. And I think it's really good. And it was exactly what we were talking about. Relationship, service, and purpose helps kind of replace some of that pressure of perfectionism. Right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take the questions.
And
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
and
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, Judy, the QR code is for an evaluation, right?
Yes, yeah, it is. If you want to share any thoughts that you had or any ideas for other topics, always. Right. All right. We hope to see you next month. Or if you liked it so much, you can come and join us again at 6 o'clock. Have a good day.